Yo, what's going on, it's your boy Anubis here with the brand new video for you guys today. Good morning, good evening, good night. Welcome to our channel, do all the things the algorithm likes, and today we're going to talk about Ubisoft again. This time we might be, it's only a negative video, but it won't be like the other previous Ubisoft videos where I was just going hard on Ubisoft. But we're going to talk about Ubisoft. Excuse me, where my blanket gets kind of cold right now. It's freaking 8 o'clock in the morning. Boy just woke up now, and I had the idea to record this video. So we're gonna have some gameplay in here, as well as just some us just talking to each other. So let's get this shit started. So Ubisoft is in the news again, unfortunately, because they canceled some unannounced games and they delayed they delayed Skull and Bones once more. As someone who has played Skull and Bones when it comes to some things that are under NDA, I will say this about the game: it wasn't that bad. That's all I'm gonna say about the game, because again, NDA. But when it comes to Ubisoft and it comes to like their failure and their lack of success, because let's be honest, when it comes to Ubisoft has not been putting out bangers, and people have not been like really caring about Ubisoft. And the most recent announcements, including Assassin's Creed announcements, have let people freaking like more so wondering what their goal is here, and what the plan is. And so today's video is kind of want to talk about like why is Ubisoft struggling? Because Ubisoft used to be a lot better. Ubisoft used to be one of my favorite studios out there. Ubisoft used to put out some banger games, and I said before in my video where I was going pretty heavy on Ubisoft, which to your left or to your right, you can look at that video and get some more details on some of Ubisoft struggles. But I mentioned in that video that Ubisoft has had a lot of the best IPs in gaming. Whether you're looking at Splinter Cell or Assassin's Creed or any number of Tom Clancy games, right now Rainbow Six Siege is still going on strong at the 7 years. And there's other ones like Rayman and etc. So what has happened with Ubisoft? A lot of decisions Ubisoft has made it's kind of like why things have kind of went south for them. You think about the easy touchdown that was the Division, then they fumbled it with Division 2. What went wrong there? You have Division 1, which was a really good game. The Identity Dark Zone is very good. Everything about Division 1, you can kind of complain about like the bullet sponge enemies, but for the most part, most people who played Division 1, they really enjoyed that game. They really loved that game. And Division 2 just wasn't it. Division 2 was just the same game, and it kind of felt like an expansion to Division 1 instead of a full brand new game. And so you ask most people who play Division 1, Division 2, they would tell you like, yeah, Division 2 probably should have been an expansion pack. And it's kind of like an often conversation you'll get when it comes to the MMO light style kind of games, games like Destiny and Warframe, etc., like Division, where it's like it might have been a better idea had these games not come out with sequels, but instead just had expansions on the original game. Destiny, look at that, Destiny 2 probably should exist. If they should have just had Destiny as one entity and just kept adding on to it over and over again, especially when it comes to like the sunsetting thing. If you're sunsetting old Destiny 1 stuff and you're putting all this new content onto it, the sunsetting will make a lot more sense. Then comes to Division 2 should have been an expansion and not a brand new full price game, because it didn't feel like a brand new game. It felt like the exact same game. It felt like all mechanics were exactly the same. It felt like there was no real changes to the visuals, no real changes to the story. Story was a little bit worse and dry. So there's a lot less love for Division 2 than it was with Division 1. Now, don't get me wrong, I actually did enjoy Division 2 for what it was, because it still was Division. But it was too much like Division 1 to where you don't really justify it being its own game. And that continues on to like games like Ghost Recon Breakpoint, Ghost Recon Wildlands. First and foremost, most people who are Ghost Recon fans want to just play Ghost Recon. They didn't want this open world Far Cry style game that Wildlands and Breakpoint was. But for the most part, people did kind of enjoy Wildlands and was feeling the story a little bit. The issue was Breakpoint, much like Division 2, was a brand new game that felt like an expansion. It didn't feel like a brand new game. And not only that, it was a worse game. It was a worse story game. And a lot of the things that gave it any kind of replay value was just the R6 cameos. Breakpoint was not very good. It seemed like every character in the game was basically just John Bernthal, which even when they had like a crossover Tomb Raider. Guess who the Terminator? I said Tomb Raider. The Terminator. Guess who the Terminator was? John Bernthal. So it's like you're just reusing the same character, the same actor over and over again. It's like, hey, we can spit all on this guy. Let's just make sure we just keep using him over and over again for the game. So like there wasn't like a lot of redeeming qualities about Breakpoint, and it just continues. People got less and less interested in Far Cry games. Far Cry 3 was like the peak. Far Cry 4, is hit or miss depending on who you ask. Far Cry 5, people love the villain, which generally that's the draw to Far Cry games nowadays, just the villains. But when it comes to like the core gameplay, people stop caring about Far Cry. Far Cry Primal, Far Cry 5, Far Cry New Dawn, Far Cry 6, the gameplay just got so stale and uninteresting, people just stopped giving a shit. And you think about Assassin's Creed, one of the biggest IPs in gaming, when it came to, the first few games, it was like Assassin's Creed 1, Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, Revelations. Assassin's Creed 3 wasn't really like considered a great game at launch, but people grew into it over time. I love it. It's one of the first Assassin's Creed games. And then, you have Black Flag, which is like, probably the peak of Assassin's Creed. After Black Flag, things kind of went downhill, based on who you ask. Some people hated a lot of the games after Black Flag. And to a point to where Ubisoft had to like take a pause and, basically reinvent the game until you got, Origins. And Origins was this brand new Assassin's Creed style. It was amazing. Love it. Most people love it. Then you had Odyssey, people enjoyed it, but you started to see like something with Odyssey where it's like, all right, there's a lot of grind here, a lot of irrelevant tasks that I don't really care about doing. And then you got to Valhalla, which was just a bloated mess of just really bad missions, really bad story. Everything about Valhalla to me was just awful. It's just an awful experience, nothing but grindy as hell. Then there's that one thing about Assassin's Creed games that Ubisoft changed or added that make people freaking just kind of hate the franchise, and that's the microtransactions. This is a single player video game, and people are going to hate having microtransactions in a single player game. Now, if you're talking about like skins, that's one thing, because skins have been a thing since that horse armor from Oblivion. But when it comes to like Ubisoft games, and especially Assassin's Creed, you started seeing like quality of life things put into microtransactions. You started seeing time gating things like microtransactions. It was like, oh, this might take you some hours to grind and do. You could spend some money to get your XP quicker, or spend some money to get this, spend some money to get that. There's just so many microtransactions for Assassin's Creed games to where it just got really bad. So you think about Ubisoft and Ubisoft's issues is their games started getting grindier and grindier and grindier, and they started putting more and more microtransactions into their games, and the games themselves got worse and worse and worse. We didn't talk about the whole Watch Dogs thing, where you got the Watch Dogs 1 was this mediocre video game that looked astonishing at E3, but then looked very downgraded when it came to like the full release. Watch Dogs 2 was actually a good game, but no one really played it because Watch Dogs 1 sucked and no one really cared about the new character. Then you got Watch Dogs Legions, was looked promising, but again went through another graphical downgrade, and it just wasn't fun or interesting. It was just another empty, boring open world Ubisoft game. The Ubisoft formula, which a lot of studios ended up like copying, like Horizon Zero Dawn copied the Ubisoft formula. Breath of the Wild, it changed things up, but it also kind of copied the Ubisoft formula. A lot of modern like action RPGs and action adventure games copy Ubisoft's Far Cry formula and just did their own thing with it. And some of those games are now getting that same feeling of it just feels like the same game over and over again. It feels uninteresting, feels boring, it feels empty. It's like there's no real atmosphere and things like that. That's all because of like with this Far Cry formula where there's just not any more content to it anymore. So where does Ubisoft go from here? How does Ubisoft figure out a way to where their games aren't so bad at they're making money? Because at the end of the day, Ubisoft wants to make money. That's just kind of how it is now in gaming. Every studio wants to make money. No one really cares about are the consumers happy. They just want to make some money. Well, you can make a good video game and you'll make money and have happy consumers. And Ubisoft could do that with the next few Assassin's Creed games. Don't make some kind of like money hungry Assassin's Creed game. It's that simple. You will kill Assassin's Creed if you keep coming up with games that are just bloated, grinding messes that are no one really playing, and that's just steeped in money needing to be spent to enjoy the game. When it comes to Ghost Recon, maybe it's time to go back to the OG style of Ghost Recon, that if people fell in love with Advanced Warfighter, Advanced Warfighter 2. When it comes to Watch Dogs, maybe it's time to just leave Watch Dogs in the past. Maybe there's no need for a new Watch Dogs game. When it comes to Skull and Bones, maybe it's time to like the Skull and Bones, not to like just be shelved or anything like that. Skull and Bones can be a good game. Skull and Bones can be a good release for Ubisoft. They just need to make Skull and Bones in a way to where people will want to enjoy it. And that goes back to when I said, don't have a grinding video game where you just people are being tasked with, hey, do you want to spend 80 hours to get very irrelevant shit, or do you want to spend some money to like erase that time of get it to 80 hours and just get it done in 5 hours? Just make good video games. That's all Ubisoft has to do. It's literally that simple. If you just make good games, people will spend money. If you just make good games, people will buy your games. If you just make good games, you won't be struggling. Where's Beyond Good Evil 2? That game is like in development limbo right now. No one freaking knows. They show it off here and there, but it's like, all right. At this point, people feel like that game might not even get like released. It's like there's nothing. You're not showing anybody anything. No one has any belief or reasons to think that Ubisoft is going to release that game. And that's how it is right now when it comes to Ubisoft. Ubisoft is in a situation where no one really has a lot of faith in them. At the end of the day, people don't really have faith in Ubisoft. Ubisoft's kind of a meme right now. Even my friends call it Ubisoft. For a lot of people who play R6, they're at a point with the game where it's like they don't feel like R6 is even the same game anymore. I feel like the identity of Rainbow Six Siege has changed to a point where it's not about being a tactical shooter. It's more about trying to do it what they can to draw in casual players who will spend money. You have these Rick and Morty skins. You have the new WWE skins where Blackbeard is Undertaker and Thorn is Becky Lynch. You have the Nier Automata skins and Nier Replicant skins. Like, you have all these skins that are less and less and less about being, a special task force, and more and more about, just being this, kind of over the top kitty, Fortnite air quotes kind of style where it's like, hey, just spend money and look extravagant in this game that kind of like isn't meant to have this cartoony look towards it, or these cartoony characters or anything of that nature. We're supposed to be like something realistic, instead of the game having crossovers with like other FPS titles or its own games like Splinter Cell and Division and Ghost Recon is again Rick and Morty. So there's just so much about Ubisoft right now where it's like they don't get it. I think I said before, Ubisoft is very tone deaf. People will tell Ubisoft what they want to play, and Ubisoft will just go, nah, we don't think they'll make money. People have begged for a new Splinter Cell game for so long, and it took Ubisoft till like last year to be like, yeah, oh, there's one in development, even though for like ever we kept telling y'all we're making a new game, but there's one in development, probably like the very early stages where it's on the whiteboard, but we haven't actually started doing anything else about it. But hey, maybe some remakes, but we're not going to guarantee when those remakes are going to come out or anything like that. We canceled the Prince of Persia remake because chances are we don't think that game's going to sell well, and we got to focus on these other games that require a full development staff from across the freaking board to make sure these games are running and have microtransactions in them. You could say a lot of the issue of Ubisoft games is live service. You could always go back to that singular low-hanging fruit in modern gaming of live service. Live service could be the biggest issue with Ubisoft right now. Who knows? Personally, as someone who has been playing Ubisoft games for a long time, like literally, I've been playing Ubisoft games for a long time. Most of my favorite games are Ubisoft games. So it's like it sucks. It sucks when you witness it, when you see them struggling, when you hear that they're canceling games, when the games that they do come out with that are actually good games don't succeed. Again, looking at Watch Dogs 2. Watch Dogs 2 is actually a really good game, but it didn't really do very good because the first one wasn't interesting enough, and people just didn't really care about the look. People judge, like, no matter what you think about anything else, people in gaming, much like a lot of spots in life, would judge a book by its cover. And the book of Watch Dogs, the cover of Watch Dogs 2 didn't look like a game people want to play, because it looked like your zoomer, super left kind of like style where you can't, like, you know, I don't need to go into details on what I'm trying to refer to. You should get it, but that's what I'm saying. Super left. You know, people looked at that and just like, yeah, I'm not interested. But it's actually a good game. You know, games like For Honor had like a lot of issues, but it's a really good game. But it didn't do very good. You know, Ubisoft has kind of been living off Assassin's Creed and Rainbow Six Siege. What it feels like. And those are good franchises, but at the same time, it's like, hey, we kind of do want that, you know, that old school Rainbow Six single player experience. We got like Rainbow Six Vegas, Vegas 2. You know, we kind of do want to experience what that Patriot game would have been like. But here we are, we're stuck with this live service, you know, tactical shooter that, you know, isn't really getting better or worse. It's just kind of stale and exists. Like, I love Siege. It's been great to me for the last 7 years, but it doesn't deny the fact that it is kind of stale. And, you know, at the 7 years, I play it like maybe twice a week, if even that. But what I genuinely hope, like I said, I don't want this video to be another, you know, big dump on Ubisoft, because I do want to see them do better. I do want them to succeed, and I'll gladly take part in, you know, buying their games if they make good games. You know, the days of Ubisoft getting money out of me because the IP that they release is IP that I love, it's kind of over. You know, like, I'm not going to buy the next Far Cry game because it's Far Cry. I played Far Cry 2, 3, 4, and 5, and Primal, and 6. And I was reluctant to buy 6. I didn't really get it until it was on sale. And the next Far Cry game, if it's not like anything drastically different, I'm probably pass on it, because I'm kind of tired of what Far Cry is now. You know, what Far Cry is right now is just uninteresting. It's boring. The story sucks nowadays. And again, the biggest draw to Far Cry games now is just the villain. Thing about Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 4 is that, yes, the villains are draws there too, but the games themselves are pretty good too. And at the end of the day, this is on Ubisoft. This is on Ubisoft. You know, the gamers can do what gamers gonna do, and that's gonna be either play the game or don't play the game. But developers gotta make good games. And Ubisoft, you gotta make good games. You know, if you want success, Ubisoft, you just gotta make good games. Especially nowadays, how vocal gamers are. You have to make a good game. Otherwise, gamers just like, yeah, I'm not interested. Especially with how good indie games are being, how good games from other studios who we know put love and care into the games. Looking at you, From Software. People love From Software because we know From Software is going to put a lot of love and time into their games and make something good. You know, the biggest blimp on From Software's record is Dark Souls 2, which isn't an awful game, but it's just not as good as the rest of their games, so it just gets looked at as this horrible game, when in reality, you know, yes, most people who played Dark Souls 2, outside of the terrible mechanics and some of the bullshit in Dark Souls 2, they'll tell you, like, yeah, it's actually a pretty good game. I should do like this boss fight, that boss fight, etc, etc, etc. So From Software, you know, that's their worst game. And Armored Core 6 is coming out at some point, or some Elden Ring DLC, and people are going to go back in droves and going to pre-order Armored Core 6, and going to play Elden Ring's DLC and love it because they trust From Software. Ubisoft, you don't have any trust anymore. The trust is gone. And how do you get that trust back? Make good games. That goes for Activision, that goes for EA, that goes for every AAA studio. If you want that gamer trust back, because a lot of you used to have a lot of trust, especially Activision, you're like Ubisoft. You had like a lot of IPs, people trusted you. Make good games and you'll get that trust back, so people aren't really worried about anything. They just play your game. With all that said, guys, this video, thank you for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Y'all stay safe. Y'all stay true to yourselves. Follow me on Twitch. Link in the description box below. Stream Monday to Thursday. So hit me up on there. Follow me. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Your boy Nova's out of here. Deuces.